All right.
Oh, I see
So
that too.
welcome everyone to our Wednesday night Welcome Wellness. We every Wednesday at 7, we do sort of a wellness topic. It depends, we've changed it up. We've done reflexology, we've done organic gardening, we've done virtual learning. And this week, I'm really excited to welcome my friend Alicia Mastrangelo. She is a Reiki master, and she is going to talk to us a little bit about Reiki, what it's all about. If you have never experienced Reiki before, it's kind of hard to explain. I will tell you, the first time I ever had Reiki done, I was like, why have I not been doing this for years? This is incredible. And I
Yep.
think in sort of the self-care realm, if you aren't exposed to energy healing at all prior to your first Reiki session, you sort of think, oh, like I'll go do, I'll go do massage, or maybe I'll dip into chiropractic. And okay, acupuncture, like people talk about acupuncture, and acupuncture and Reiki are kind of similar in a lot of ways,
Yeah.
in the fact that they are both energy healing. But it seems like, to me, acupuncture sort of, because there is something physical, people feel like it works better. It's sort of like people feel like, if they aren't exposed to it, right? So I feel like people think that sort of like the dose makes the potency of things.
Right.
And Reiki is probably very similar to that, in terms of, you're not really necessarily putting your hands on people. So tell us a little bit about Reiki. Give us an intro for anybody who has not tried Reiki and seen how incredible it is. I'm a huge proponent of Reiki. I love Reiki. So Alicia, go ahead and tell us a little bit about why we
Thank
should try
you.
Reiki and what it is.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I agree. A lot of the perception is I can't see it or necessarily touch it. So is it really real? Is it really doing anything? And the answer is yes. It's always doing something. So, but to back up a little bit, the simplest definition of Reiki is that it is energy healing. So we are energy. We're just in a meat suit right now for
Yeah.
this go around.
Mm-hmm.
The universe is energy, we are energy, and really, Reiki has two goals. The first goal is to clear out any blocks in our energy so that it can flow smoothly and cleanly and efficiently the way that it should,
Mm-hmm.
but to also bring our energy system into balance. So if you see that tapestry behind me over there, all of those different colored lights represent your energy centers, which are called chakras. So
Mm-hmm.
we actually have quite a few chakras all over the body, but those 7 are, you can kind of think of them as your energy servers. Those are your hubs. And
Interesting.
so
That's a good way
Reiki,
of thinking about it. I like that.
yeah, and I like that because people can relate to that.
Yeah.
And so each of those different chakras governs different body systems, emotions. It's associated to different colors, as you see, different crystals, different herbs, you name it. And so we want to make sure that nothing has kind of gooped up the works. And so Reiki goes in and kind of helps remove anything that might be stuck, and then make sure that all of your chakras are the same size so that you're balanced. So we want your energy to flow smoothly and efficiently and cleanly, because that helps us be healthy on all levels. So a lot of people default to thinking of the physical, which is great, but we also have an emotional body, a mental body, and a spiritual body. And so Reiki helps to heal on all of those levels, which is one of the many, many things that I love about it. So it's really, people always ask me, is Reiki good for this? Is Reiki good for that? And I'm like, yes, all the things. It's good for all the things. So
I love that I've never heard size referred to when you talk about balancing chakras. I
yeah,
like that, because it's I've never thought of it that way. I've always thought of like, you want to make sure everything is sort of in alignment and make sure that everything is flowing smoothly.
Yeah.
But it would stand to reason that if one of your chakras was sort of doing overtime, and then one of your chakras was sort of taking a back seat and not doing as much, it would throw everything out of balance.
Exactly.
So it's really a lot about balance. And I like the thought of the idea of size. So for people who have never experienced Reiki before, I usually fall asleep when I'm when I'm having Reiki performed on me. Can you share a little bit about what, as a practitioner, what do you do? What is that like? And what will someone experience if they're receiving Reiki from you?
Yeah, so I would, first and foremost, I would recommend that you go into a session as the receiver with no expectations. So have an open mind, try not to expect anything in particular, because you can experience all sorts of things or nothing at all. So also, every practitioner has kind of their own style. So they have their own process that they follow. For my in-person sessions, I am a hands-on practitioner typically. I do ask the client if they're comfortable with that. If not, then we adjust accordingly. But I am typically a hands-on practitioner. And so I am actually a channel for the Reiki energy. So during a session, I will tap into source energy. So some people might call it God energy, universal energy, whatever term you like. It all means kind of the same.
Right.
And so I'll dial into that. I have a whole process I go through before you arrive to see me to kind of connect in. And that energy will come down, flow through me, and will come out of the palms of my hands into you. And so super fun for me as a practitioner, because I get Reiki at the same time I am doing Reiki. So that's really awesome. And it's honestly, it's the best compliment I can get if somebody does fall asleep on the table, because to me, that just tells me that they're comfortable, they feel safe to just really relax and let go. So I kind of look at it as a compliment. Now, people ask, does that cut off my ability to receive if I'm sleeping? And absolutely not. You're actually more receptive because you're about as relaxed as you can be.
Right.
So really, I just tell people, leave your worries at the door, come in, allow yourself that time to be all about you, all about your receiving, all about your self-care. And that's actually really hard for a lot of people.
Yeah.
So, if nothing else, the fact that they can check out of life for 30, 60 minutes to just be and receive is supremely beneficial, in addition to all of the other benefits.
Yeah. So when you're performing Reiki, can you talk a little bit about so someone comes in, what's the first thing that happens? Just because I want people to feel comfortable with the idea of going to a Reiki practitioner. I think sometimes people are really scared because they don't know what to expect. So they're like, what's this going to be like? It's sort of like you have this concept of, I'm going to go for a massage, here's what's going to happen. Or I'm going to go to get a wrap, or whatever, whatever kind of self-care you're doing. And you sort of know what's going to happen. So for you, what happens on the sort of receiving side? Somebody walks in, and what do you do? What's their experience at that point?
Yeah. So first and foremost, I kind of give them a rundown of how I work, what the physical process will be like. I'm going to be touching. Is that okay? For women, obviously your heart chakra is in an awkward spot because it's right in the middle of your chest. So I usually crack a joke about that, and that makes them laugh and helps them relax a little bit. But basically, we just talk through any questions they might have. I give them kind of an overview of what's going to happen. I explain that typically during their session, I do not talk because I don't want to kind of interfere with their relaxation, but that they're welcome to ask me questions as we go. And so from there, the person will remain fully clothed. So
Right.
this is not a naked kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So just take off shoes, glasses, that kind of stuff. And
Right.
they'll be on a massage table like they would for a
Yep.
massage. And for me, the way that I work, the person will be laying on their back to start, and we'll spend
Mm-hmm.
about 2/3 of their time that way. And I'll work the front of the body. And
Mm-hmm.
then at that point, I'll have them flip over so I can work the back of the body. Your chakras actually have a front and a back, kind of like a
Mm-hmm.
clamshell.
Yeah.
And then once their session is complete, I'll usually have to wake them up.
Mm-hmm.
And just have them sit for a minute because they might be a little lightheaded. They might
Yeah.
feel a little, you know, like when you have a physical massage, you're kind of like, I need to come back to the world.
Right.
And then once we're done, we'll actually sit back down and then I'll give them a rundown. So I'll talk through each of the chakras, what they're related to, what their
Mm-hmm.
chakras told me. Did they have some blocks? Are there
Right.
any suggestions for them?
Mm-hmm.
Any other kind of intuitive messages that come through, any
Mm-hmm.
recommendations, and
Yeah.
then that's it.
So now that we've sort of gone through what what to expect, and what Reiki is a little bit, we haven't
Yeah.
gone too deep
Oh,
into what
I
Reiki
could
is
talk
because
for
we could
hours.
talk for hours, right? Days.
Yeah.
So how did you decide, like, what was your first Reiki experience like, and how did you figure out, hey, this is really something I want to delve deeper into?
Yeah, I wish I'm going to make this as short as possible, but I had gone on a yoga retreat and I saw that they offered this thing called Reiki, and I read the definition and it made sense to me. So I was like, all right, we'll give this a try. I
Yeah.
had a session and was completely blown away by how I felt, how the experience was. It was amazing. And so I was talking to some friends about it, and they're like, well, why don't you become a practitioner? And I said, can I do self Reiki if I become a practitioner? And they're like, oh, yeah. I'm
Mhm.
like, well, take my money. Here we go. And so then, you know, moving on, I learned in Reiki 2, you get the ability to do distance healing. And
Mhm.
so I have friends and family all over. So I was like, well, obviously I need to move on to Reiki 2. And so I did that. And then eventually I moved on to be a master teacher and thought, okay, maybe I would like to teach and be able to, you know, induct some new practitioners because the world needs a whole lot more healers.
Mhm.
And so it was kind of, it was a multi-year process, and it was just kind of, it wasn't a straight line. Like I never envisioned in my first Reiki class or my first session, like, oh, this is what I'm going to do. It just kind of, it opened a lot of intuitive doors for me, a
Yes.
lot of personal growth, a lot
Mhm.
of kind of reevaluating what I wanted to do in the world.
Mhm.
And so it was just kind of part of what I call following the breadcrumbs of
Mhm.
things were presented. And I was like, all right, well, let's see where this goes.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, so when you sort of made that step from I've tried this and now I want to learn more, how is, so if somebody is sort of thinking, oh, this sounds really interesting, how do I learn more about it? What's the easiest way for people to sort of learn more about it?
Yeah, you can, there's really, I mean, we have the whole of the world at our fingertips with Google, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I would also recommend that you talk to somebody that is a practitioner to
Mm-hmm.
get that firsthand knowledge,
Yeah.
and see, you know, and see if it's right for you. So
Yeah.
I think it's right for a whole lot of people,
Yeah.
but not everybody is ready at the time they inquire.
Right. Right.
So, you know, whether it's coming to somebody for a session or you decide that you want to become a practitioner,
Mm-hmm.
talk to somebody. And, you know, what if it's me, fantastic. If our energy doesn't vibe
Mm-hmm.
and you meet somebody else, great.
Yeah.
It's a very intimate, energetic thing. And
Yeah.
so you always want to vibe with whoever you're working with, whether that's your practitioner or your teacher.
Right.
But, you know, just talk to somebody about it. You know, I have a whole section on my website with a little bit about Reiki and some information. There's tons of resources out there that give more in-depth stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like I joked before, like I could literally talk about this for days. So
Mm-hmm.
I always encourage people, don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't think
Right,
any question
right.
is stupid or that you should magically know it somehow. Just
Yeah,
ask.
yeah. And I will say, you know, every Reiki session that I've ever had has been completely different
Yeah.
from the last one. There are times, and the conversations we have afterwards about what's going on, you know, you would think that, oh, the same things would sort of pop up, but depending on where you're at in your life and what's going on. And, you know, I remember coming home from conference for my business one time, and I went for Reiki shortly after that. And my Reiki practitioner said to me, oh my gosh, like, I feel like there's these bright bubbles everywhere. Like, it's like this, it's like a ball pit. Like,
Yeah.
you know, so it's funny how whatever's going on in your life can sort of show up
Mm-hmm.
in that Reiki session. And I will say also, I hadn't gone to Reiki specifically for work by any stretch.
Yeah.
But I will say my first Reiki session, I came out and I was astounded by like the focus and concentration I had to come out and do my job afterwards, and also just the clarity and the energy. Like, I had so much more energy to do what I needed to do for work.
Yep.
And then there's also been times when I've really needed it for my whatever is going on in my life emotionally. So it really does work on all
Oh
levels.
yeah.
Whereas I feel like massage is much more a physical, like,
Yeah.
and sometimes you have, you know, physical manifestations of stress that you need worked out through massage. But with Reiki, I feel like it really does just bring you know, as we talked about with the chakras, just brings everything into balance so that you're feeling like all aspects of your life are making more sense and lining up the way that they're supposed to be. So I just want to check Facebook and make sure nobody has any questions. Sometimes we get a lot of questions on these. Sometimes the questions come later. So I just want to make sure. I don't see any questions yet. So on your website, if somebody was sort of looking to learn a little bit more,
Mhm.
if they went to your website, you're a teacher as well, so you do teach.
I do.
How is that going with COVID?
So for me personally, my in-person offerings, whether it's Reiki sessions or teaching, or I do card readings as well.
Mm-hmm.
The card readings I've moved over to Zoom, but I offer distance Reiki in place of the
Mm-hmm.
in-person Reiki. Teaching is currently on hold.
Okay.
So the line of Reiki that I am part of, our attunement process for practitioners is very physical.
Mm-hmm.
And so not something that I am willing to do at the moment for
Yeah,
everybody's safety involved.
sure.
Additionally, a big part of at least your Reiki 1 training is hands-on practice time with me.
Yeah.
And so that's just not something that's terribly feasible at the moment. And
Mm-hmm.
so currently on pause, but I am hopeful and keeping my fingers crossed that we'll get back to that sooner rather than later.
So you mentioned a couple of things that people who have never sort of delved into Reiki at all would know anything about. First of all, I want to ask you about sort of lineage. Second of all, I want to ask you about the different levels.
Okay.
So can you explain to us sort of that whole lineage piece? And then can you explain to us the different levels, what they mean, what you can do at the different levels, because I know that's really important. You don't want to be playing with something you don't understand until you're ready to. So can you speak a little bit to that?
Sure. So I am trained in the traditional Usui Reiki. So
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Usui was the one who kind of formalized Reiki training.
Mm-hmm.
And when Reiki finally came to the West, it was a verbal tradition for a very
Mm-hmm.
long time. And so even those of us that are trained in the Usui tradition, we may still learn things differently. We may teach a little bit differently, because by the time things finally got written down, there were some variations.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there are other lines of Reiki. You may hear people talk about Holy Fire Reiki, which is
Mm-hmm.
a relatively new tradition of Reiki. I really actually don't know too much about it, because I haven't felt called to kind of learn more about
Mm-hmm.
it, but I know that that's another offering as well. So, for me, it's a very traditional form of Reiki that I've learned. I've also kind of tweaked it as I go, just to bring in my own kind of process and that sort of stuff. But
Mm-hmm.
it's a very traditional form of Reiki. Now, that being said, the way that I was taught was in 3 levels. So level 1, you become a practitioner. You can do self Reiki, you can do Reiki on family and friends, pets, plants, all that good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then level 2 is your next step, and that on top of what you've already learned in Reiki 1, you also learn the ability to do distance healing, which
Mm-hmm.
is phenomenal, and I love doing distance sessions. And then from there, we have master teacher. So
Mm-hmm.
the way that my teacher was taught and her teacher was taught and I was taught, it's a combined master teacher class. So even if you don't intend on teaching right away, it's good to have the combined class. You have all of that kind of in one class, and then you're ready
Mm-hmm.
to go if you decide that you would
Right.
like to teach as well.
Yeah. Heather Andrade commented she did not have any questions, but she does feel that when you meet Alicia, you can feel the goodness in her,
Oh,
which I would
thank you,
agree
Heather. Thank you,
100%.
Heather. Your
Um,
check's in the mail, Heather.
so I actually took the level 1 class, and I will tell everybody one of the really wonderful benefits. You mentioned doing Reiki on your pets. We actually at that point had a dog who was really ill. I didn't realize it yet. She got diagnosed with cancer. So it was nice for me to feel like I was able to at least give her a little bit of relief during that time. And so I feel like I got that training, and I was really called to get that training at that point in my life, just to help that creature through that time. And so it was really meaningful to me, and I'll never forget how much that made me feel like I it was all just sort of the universe saying, okay, here's the way you're going to help this animal that you has been in your life for several years. And it was a wonderful thing to be able to do that. So I'll never I don't know whether I'll ever go any farther with that or
Yep.
come back to it at all, but at that point in time it was really wonderful to have that
Yeah.
available.
Well, and that's the thing that I tell people. It's you're once you start doing Reiki training, you're not required to go all the way through the levels. It's whatever you feel called to do. And
Mm-hmm.
really, funny story, I actually took Reiki 1 twice, because the first teacher and class I did not vibe with at all. And so I ended up taking it again with somebody else, and it was a totally different experience for me.
Yeah.
And my only intention when I had started was to just be able to do self Reiki, like not even Reiki like my husband. I was just like, oh, this
Mm-hmm.
is all for me.
Yeah.
And then, the parts and pieces kind of fell together, where I was like, okay, I need to move on to level 2. And then, okay, like I feel like I'm being called to move on to be a teacher.
Right. Right.
So, and I tell people too, like, it doesn't matter if you took Reiki 1 yesterday or 30 years ago, you are
Mm-hmm.
still a Reiki practitioner.
Right.
So,
Right. Yeah, I kind of had that conversation with my Reiki teacher too. She had asked me at one point, have you, practiced it all? And I said, no, I really haven't. And she's like, it's always there.
Yeah.
Once you have that, you can tap into it. It's
Yeah.
not like it goes away and you have to like take the course over again. It's always there for you.
Yeah.
In terms of other forms of energy healing, what kind of questions do you get from people who have sort of done other forms of energy healing and they're curious about Reiki? Do you get that a lot?
I get some of them, and some people are like, oh, how is it different from such and such? And I'm like, I've never even heard of such and such. So let me Google that and I'll get back to you. So, I have found there's a lot of energy healing modalities that have a lot of similarities to Reiki, the more things that I start to look into. But again, I personally have not been called to pursue any of those myself. And that might come. So I just tell people, try to kind of separate them, and don't assume that they're all just the same.
Right.
And again, your practitioner is a big part of your experience as well.
Yeah.
So just like you want to choose the correct hairstylist, or you want to choose the correct massage therapist,
yes,
you want to make sure you vibe with your Reiki practitioner, because
exactly,
we're so energetically connected during your session.
Yeah.
And we're going to be talking about things that are personal,
really personal. Exactly.
Yeah. I tell people I'm not a therapist, but I play one on TV. So you want to make sure that you're totally comfortable with that person. And so I've had a lot of people kind of find me in the time of COVID being like, I just found you, I'm interested in a session. And, I'm like, call me, talk to me, see if you like my vibe.
Right.
And we'll go from there. And if you don't, it's not personal.
Right. Yeah. So it's really funny. I have to share this because the way that I met my practitioner, I actually met her through my business, but then one of the ways that we got to be very close was because my son has Tourette's syndrome, my middle son, and she also has Tourette's. And so we got to know each other because of that. And I would ask her questions about that. And started seeing her when she became a practitioner. I was like, oh my gosh, I want to try that, and I'd love to come see you. And so when she opened, sort of started doing it as a business, started seeing clients and not just doing it for herself, I wanted to go work with her. And I said to my son at one point, so, this really helps with her tics, and maybe it's something you might want to try. And he's like, I'm not trying any of those Jedi mind tricks. So I told him after I got my Reiki level 1, now I was a Jedi. Like, I've got it all. Like, I'm a Jedi now. Yeah.
I love that. And as you probably know, I'm a little bit of a Star Wars geek myself. So I kind of joke with people sometimes, you can call it source energy, you can call it God energy, you can call it the Force, whatever you want.
Yeah. So you and I are both Jedis. We've got it.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
I just want to see if anybody has any questions. Okay, I don't see any questions. I'm sure some will pop up. I want to thank Alicia so much for joining us in this ongoing series of sort of just wellness topics. It's been great having you, and I really appreciate you coming on and talking to us a little bit more about this. I think it's such a fantastic modality, and I would love for more people to experience it. So if this gets people to sort of check Reiki out who haven't checked it out, I will be thrilled. So
me too.
Thanks again, Alicia. And I'm going to pop your website in the comments so that everybody knows how to get in touch with you. And have a great night, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.